Hey everybody, Dom Diggity here, and I had a question. Why do people mulch? I've traveled to my girlfriend's grandfather's backyard, and he has a beautiful garden, and he grows peppers, tomatoes, you know, um, dandelion, aka chicoria. That's what Italians call it. They call it chicoria, and they have so many. He has so many plants, but he doesn't really worry about mulching. He uses a topsoil, and for the most part, his plants remain fine. But this year we've had just a very big heat wave, and I noticed that some of his lettuce, more leafy greens, they kind of got damaged. But after the rain came back a couple days after, they kind of rejuvenated, and they kind of normally go through. It may react relatively quick depending on its environment, but that's just one of the techniques that he chooses to do. He even waters depending on the time of day, and for some gardeners they don't have that availability, so they like to use mulch as a barrier to give them kind of a safety net. So I visited my friend Seb at his garden at the Three Dreams demo plot, just to see what techniques he uses, and why should we mulch? To mulch or not to mulch? That is the question.
So we're going to talk a little bit about mulch. So what is mulch? Mulch is really any kind of material that covers up soil. So it turns the soil from bare soil that the sun and water and wind is striking to something that's covered. So that could be anything from inorganic materials like plastic, or it could be organic materials like wood chips, like straw, leaves. Could be a variety of things. We're going to cover the organic materials today. So the first one is wood chips. And as you can see with these are more like wood shavings because they're very fine wood chips. So with wood chips and wood shavings, you want to use them for things like annual plants or young seedlings, things that really need to be protected, because the thing is, the most important thing with mulch is what it does for your soil, especially talking about organic mulch. So it's going to break down. So over time, as it breaks down and decomposes into the soil, it's going to feed the soil. It blocks the sun from hitting the soil, so that raises the humidity levels in the soil. So basically that mitigates your need to water your plants because you're losing less water through evaporation. So any kind of mulch is gonna do that, depending on how heavily you lay it on. But with wood chip mulch, like we said, it's really good for young seedlings like cilantro here, like a few lettuce seedlings, because it's not gonna be blown over a lot and potentially hurt the seedlings. So what we have here is straw mulch. So straw mulch is really good for perennials and for well-established plants or hardier plants like trees, like shrubs, because when they push out of the ground, they're a lot less susceptible to things like harsh winds or heavy rains because they're coming from roots underneath. They're much stronger than, say, a seedling that you put out that you grew indoors. These are really well adapted to harsh conditions. So they can also handle what is a little bit of a harsher mulch like straw, because if this blows around, on a young seedling, young cilantro leaf or something like that, this might cut it. This might be the difference between it lasting a harsher spring moving into the growing season or not. But things like comfrey or this Loma pear tree seedling that we just planted yesterday, so it's not really looking much like a tree, but it will. These can handle straw a lot better. And also this has the same qualities as any organic mulch, in the sense that ultimately it will break down and it will feed the soil over time on top of its duties of maintaining humidity in the soil, preventing evaporation from the heat of the sun. So this is another type of mulch that we have here. So this is just kind of leaf mulch and any kind of organic matter that we're receiving from the trees around us. As you can see, a few things to note here. We've applied it much less thoroughly than the other mulches, but the difference here is this bed hasn't really been prepared for the season. and we had mulch on it earlier. But also, it's a lazier kind of resource in terms of using mulch because we just rake it up from around here. It's less uniform. It doesn't look as nice aesthetically as the wood chips or wood shavings and the straw. But it's, at the end of the day, when it comes to mulch, you want to use what's available to you. So sometimes this can really help you out when it comes to mulching up some trees or anything you got. Also, another great use for it is if you're not using it as mulch, you just throw it in the compost. We have some big compost piles back here, and leaves always make a good brown element to add to compost piles. So yeah, just some leaves here. These can be used as well for better, I would say, for perennial plants and more established plants than young seedlings. Again, because it has a mix of leaves and maybe small branches, it's not as uniform. It's going to be harsher on young seedlings. So try to reserve it if you can make the choice for perennials and established plants. Otherwise, use what you got. That's what's most important. The number one rule is never not mulch. Always, always mulch.
So just to clarify, what is one of the key differences that you would say is between this mulch and the previous mulches you showed us?
Well, I mean, aesthetically, there's a huge, I think that's the biggest difference. Definitely doesn't look as nice if you're going for a particular look of the garden. I know when it comes to permaculture and more natural systems, people care less about that, but I think kind of marrying that world of aesthetic, more landscape style gardening with permaculture is a way to get that movement moving, or movement growing a lot more. So yeah, definitely aesthetically is one big difference. But in terms of whether of how they break down, I mean, they're all going to nourish the soil slowly as they break down into it. So, and as long as you lay it thick enough, as you know, we haven't necessarily done in a lot of spots here, but that can kind of show the difference because, you know, this soil, I mean, we actually watered here, so it's not really dried out, but you know, you'll see how like soil under here that has been protected is really moist, where the soil that's here, it's definitely a bit drier. So the rule is always apply thoroughly, but when you prepare the beds, of course. You shooting?
Oh yeah.
So this is Coco. She is head of security and head of organic pest management. She's a 12-year-old miniature dachshund, and she runs around the backyard chasing squirrels, birds, groundhogs.
It's a dachshund. It's a dachshund.
I mean, really, when it comes to the groundhog, that's what her species is bred to do. So it's kind of great that this space allows her the possibility to live out what she was bred to do. Not that I agree with like the way they all breeding is, because they also have a lot of issues.
Are you saying you don't want her to kill anything, but isn't that contrary to the...
I didn't say I want her to kill anything, but scare it enough so that it doesn't come around. Yeah, I'm fine with that. Although not to say that there haven't been animals killed here. My dogs, my sister's dogs killed a groundhog as well back here. Long time, like last year, they killed a groundhog and we had to bury it. It was kind of traumatic. In love.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jeez.
But those are much bigger dogs. They're Weimaraners.
Hold on.
She likes her spot. This is not a good spot though.
There you go.
There you
okay.
go. Hold on.
Dig it up. Nice.
It's not a good spot for her to lie down.
So there you have it. I mean, he has a lovely garden. Everything's, you know, protected by his mulch. He has 3 different variations of mulch, and it serves him quite well. But on the flip side, I realized that my friend, he works a job. He has a 9-to-5. He's around my age, and it's really hard for a lot of people to maintain their gardens, and mulching kind of gives us that barrier. I mean, hey, look at this guy. He's all he does is stay in the garden. That's what he does. And I'm not knocking, you know, not mulching or how to mulch. I think the question is, what works for you? If you're someone who, you know, every day you spend your days in the garden, and you know, which is nice. I mean, one day we will all get to that point where we can spend more time. You have that knowledge, you have that wisdom, you know, it could be more risky. and it could be an aesthetics thing as well. You know, but I think what it is just, you know, experimenting. And if you have that knowledge, you're at that age where you've seen some things, you're not pressed by much, you know, you're more like a lion. You're like a lion going to the forest that you built. Beautiful. Well, I think I have a lot more to gain from watching different gardeners, so stay tuned. As for me, I mulch. Sometimes it's not pretty. My girlfriend wishes I didn't do it, but you know what? It helps protect my plants and their soil. So, hey, it's up to you to decide. Mulching for your aesthetics or mulching for your plants, just have fun with it and enjoy. And as always, thanks for watching.
Doesn't have sting though.
Yeah, but he bites you with the chompers. These motherfuckers have been attacking me all day. All day. Vicious. This guy is a... Oh, wow. What a... that was a good one. That would do it again. Do it again if I could get that shot. What a cholo. Cue the music. Boom, dun, dun, dun. Boom, 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 dun, dun, dun.